I woke to an empty house. The kind of emptiness that makes your chest ache before your brain can even register the loss. The bed was cold on one side, sheets twisted as if someone had stormed out in anger. But there were no signs of struggle. No thrown objects. No slammed doors. Only silence, except for the faint hum of the fridge downstairs. At first, I thought she had gone for a morning run or a last-minute meeting. Emily always had excuses ready, each one carefully polished. But when I went to the kitchen, I noticed the small, terrifying details. The coffee pot was cold, untouched. The mail sat, unclaimed, on the counter, and my laptop, the one she usually hid to keep me out of her business, was gone. Then I saw it. The framed photo of us on the living room mantel. It had been turned to face the wall. My heart dropped into my stomach. I didn't scream. I didn't call her. I just froze, staring at the wall, replaying every little thing from the past month. The late nights at work. The girls' nights that had multiplied suddenly. The way she would laugh at texts she never showed me. The half-smile she gave when I asked, "Is everything okay?" I ran to the bedroom, opening drawers, searching for a note, a clue, anything that might explain why my wife, the woman I had promised to spend my life with, had vanished without a word. Nothing. Panic and disbelief collided in my chest. I pulled my phone from the nightstand and scrolled through messages, emails, anything recent. There was nothing. No goodbye. No threats. Not even a hint. It was as if she had been erased from our home overnight. I drove to her office first, my hands gripping the wheel so tightly my knuckles burned. Her assistant looked at me like I was insane. "Emily hasn't been in for days," she said, voice hesitant. "She left some paperwork." I could feel my throat tightening, the first real burn of tears I refused to shed. Days. I thought she just left this morning. I retraced my steps in my mind. The gentle hum of our bed, the smell of her shampoo, the way the morning light streamed through the blinds. Everything familiar had been stripped away in a heartbeat. The police were sympathetic but helpless. "Adults leave all the time," the officer said quietly. "If there's no note or signs of foul play, there's little we can do until she turns up, or someone reports her missing formally." But this wasn't just leaving. This was deliberate, precise, calculated. I returned home that night to an apartment that suddenly felt alien, like someone had erased the soul of the place. I sat on the couch, staring at her chair at the dining table, imagining her there just hours ago, laughing at something trivial. The absence of her presence was deafening. Then my phone buzzed. A single message from an unknown number. "I'm sorry. It's not what you think. Have to go. Don't try to follow me." It was unsigned, but the tone, the phrasing, it was hers. And then it hit me. Betrayal doesn't always announce itself with shouting, slamming doors, or accusations. Sometimes it comes quietly, leaving nothing but hollow spaces where love once lived. I spent the night pacing the living room, imagining every possible scenario. Was there someone else? Had she been planning this for weeks? Months? The thought made bile rise in my throat. The truth clawed its way to the surface, cold and sharp. She had been sneaking around, living a parallel life, and somehow I hadn't seen it. I called my best friend, Mark, in the middle of the night. "She's gone," I said. "No note. No fight. Nothing. Just gone." Mark was silent for a moment, then said, "Did she leave with someone?" "I think so," I admitted, my voice shaking. "I don't know who. I don't know why. She's gone." Mark sighed. "You have to accept it, man. Whatever she wanted, it wasn't you." I hung up and sat in the dark, letting the silence wrap around me. My mind kept circling back to the same question. How had I not seen this coming? The next morning I drove to our favorite coffee shop, the one she loved, for the corner window that caught the sunrise just right. I needed to see if this world she had left behind still existed, if I could find some fragment of her. But the barista, a young girl who always smiled at her, shrugged when I asked. "She hasn't been here," she said. I walked through the park where we used to walk our dog, imagining her laughter echoing around me. The leash was still in the hall, the dog waiting as if nothing had changed, oblivious to the fracture in the human world around him. I knelt and hugged him, the only warmth left in my life. It wasn't until that evening, sitting in our empty living room, that I found the first tangible piece of her betrayal. Her laptop, carelessly left behind, opened to a message I wasn't meant to see. The words on the screen were like ice sliding into my veins. A conversation with a man I didn't know, discussing plans I couldn't fathom. The tone was intimate, personal, calculated. She had been planning her departure meticulously, right under my nose. I felt the walls close in, the weight of every trust one had given her crashing down. How long had she been living a double life? How many nights had she whispered lies to me while laughing at someone else? I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw everything in the house out the window. I wanted to confront her, demand answers, even if it killed me. But I knew deep down, I wouldn't get answers. She had chosen silence over confrontation, absence over explanation. I took a long, shuddering breath and walked to the window. The sunrise was spilling gold across the rooftops, indifferent to the collapse of my world. And in that quiet, almost cruel beauty, I realized I had a choice: rage or survival. By the next morning I had made my decision. I didn't write her a note. I didn't call her. I didn't pack a suitcase with bitterness and anger. Left. I walked out of the house, leaving the keys on the kitchen counter. The cars remained in the driveway, untouched. The dog stayed with a friend. Everything I had built, every comfort and every memory I left behind. I didn't look back. The drive was long, empty, filled with silence that wasn't quite empty. My heart ached in a way that was almost physical, but I felt strangely lighter. Every mile carried me farther from betrayal, from heartbreak, from the woman I had loved and who had vanished without a trace. I stayed in a small motel that night, one with peeling paint and a flickering neon sign. I couldn't sleep, but I didn't need to. For the first time in weeks I felt something like clarity. The emptiness I had feared was a canvas, not a cage. In the days that followed I started to rebuild piece by piece. The world hadn't ended just because she had disappeared. My friends rallied around me, bringing groceries, checking in, listening as I spilled every shard of my shattered trust. I started running again, sweating out the anger, the sorrow, the questions with each mile. I wrote journals, not for her, not for anyone, but for myself. I wrote about the betrayal, about the love, about the painful clarity that comes when someone you trust most chooses to vanish. I realized something crucial in those long, quiet nights. Betrayal doesn't define you, tests you. And while it hurts, it also reveals the parts of yourself that are still strong, still capable of hope, still alive even when everything familiar is gone. Weeks later I sold the house. The cars went to a dealership. Every piece of my old life tied to her disappeared. I didn't make a public spectacle. I didn't leave dramatic notes or calls for revenge. I simply vanished from the world we had shared, and in doing so, I reclaimed a part of myself that had been quietly suffocating under her duplicity. I kept a single photo, one of us on our first vacation together, laughing with the wind in our hair. It wasn't about her. It wasn't even about the memory. It was about knowing that I had loved fully, and that love, no matter how betrayed, had shaped me, strengthened me. Months passed. Life became a series of quiet mornings, cups of coffee in solitude, walks in parks without echoes of laughter that didn't belong to me. There were moments of longing, sure, moments where the ache of absence was almost unbearable. But there were also moments of peace, moments of recognition that the world still moved, and so could I. And then one evening, as the sun dipped behind the city skyline, I sat in a small apartment I had rented for the first time on my own. I opened a window and let the breeze wash over me, smelled the faint scent of rain in the air, and smiled. Not at her, not at the betrayal, but at myself. I had walked through fire and come out alive. I had loved and lost and, in losing, found a kind of freedom I hadn't known I needed. And though the wounds would linger, I knew one immutable truth. No one could take my life, my choices, or my dignity without my consent. She had taken the past, yes, but I had reclaimed the future. By sunrise I was gone, not running from pain, but walking toward something unclaimed, untouched, and undeniably mine. No fight. No note. No dramatics. Just a man who had loved, been betrayed, and chosen himself over all else. And for the first time in a long while, that choice felt like everything.